Ladies and gentlemen, how you doing? John the Ninja live in the dojo, aka the Dojang, aka you don't get the drum roll this time, but it is the John the Ninja Studios. And today, I'm fortunate. Every now and again, you do something that sparks your mind to go after a little bit more. Well, I am an avid reader, and I like picking up books that I see in my room every now and again. My mother's bought me books since I was a kid. My dad's bought me books, but there are a few books that I pick up and I go, you know what? That was really something worth my time. I want to look into this a little bit more. One of those books I hold in my hand right now, and for us who speak English, it's called Just Right. But for those who speak Hebrew, it's called Raq Liktov. What does that mean? It means the same thing, just right. So what about this book made me want to read more and look up more on it? Well, it was written by an individual by the name of, and I want to get it right, Shaun Amin Terrell. This gentleman is a well-versed individual, not only in the Christian religion, but he spent time in Israel and Jerusalem studying all kinds of languages. You want to talk about ancient Greek, ancient Hebrew, Aramaic, Egyptian, etc., etc. The man is a master at what he does, and he has a love for not only learning these languages, but immersing himself in the different religions. As a Christian brother and having the opportunity through social media to reach out to him, I wanted to know if he'd do an interview about his book series and speak to me. So here I have with me right now Mr. Shaun Amin Terrell. Sir, how are you doing?
Hey, brother, I'm doing well.
Good.
Thanks for having me.
Hi.
And just for the record, I've touched on the ancient languages like the hieroglyphics, the Coptic, and things. But I spent time in those languages and I touched on them. So I haven't really scholared those languages, but I've touched on them and took courses and things like that with them. So yeah, that's what's up.
But still, my man, you could look at one and at least have an idea of like, okay, this is what the person's trying to convey in thought. Like it blows my mind every time I see another language that I haven't mastered, but I know what the word means. And that
Yeah.
instant connection, it's like, how random would that still look to me if I'd never studied that? So that's another thing. But good sir, you're a pastor. Oh man, I'm just excited. I almost said pastor, priest. I almost typed you up the other things you don't even do. But let's start from the beginning. You are a well-versed scholar, or at least a studier of our religion and Christianity. And having read your book, at least the first rendition of this, I believe there's 3 renditions so far. The 2 things that caught me was how you came to Christianity and how you kept pushing to learn more. So could you explain to us, what was that moment where, okay, I know God, but you said, no, I'm going to give my life to God? What was that?
I wouldn't identify really with Christianity per se, but I'll say that growing up, my father was a preacher and a pastor, chaplain in the army, also Vietnam veteran and everything. And my mother was a is still faithful and dedicated follower of Jesus Christ. And they raised me and my brother and sister that way, in the way of the Lord Jesus. Yeshua, actually, if you don't mind me saying his original name. Some say Yeshua, Yeshua. There's still the Yod there. But they raised us up, to follow the way of Yeshua. And at the end of the day, of course, I got into my own path growing up. My parents, even though they were like really hard in the church, like going hard in the church, and that was their life base, was the church, and that's good. Um, they were still like lenient for me, my brother, my sister, like me and my brother. We could still go out and do things. We could still go to parties. We could go have fun. We can go to concerts and things like that. And I think that really was a blessing because it didn't lock us down. We wasn't sheltered. We was able to just go live and experience life and be who we were. And so for me, I grew up dancing at the boys club. Peace to my man Kellis, my first dance partner as kids, and my man Travis, who was our break dance leader at the boys club. We was just kids. And my god brother Choo Choo, teaching me and my brother how to pop and lock and break dance. Because after that, I started rapping too. And this is what I'm gonna be talking about in book 4, how growing up doing music, entertainment, sports, dancing, rapping, how all of that links to when I did decide to give my life over to the Most High and follow Yeshua in a very, very sacred way to the best of my abilities, because I still, fall to the sins of from temptations and things like that. But at the end of the day, when I decided to make that dedicated faith statement for my life, all of those things growing up play a part. How all of that led up to when I started preaching the gospel and standing before people and not worrying about what people say about me. Because I was like 18, 19 years old when I started preaching and going out to churches and going to different settings preaching the gospel. It's like it's certain things I learned that gave me some guidance and understanding of, how to go about handling criticism as a young preacher, and how to go about, not being afraid to stand up before a bunch of people and share the message, because I was already used to that. Ooh, so basically, growing up in the church and everything, it was good. It was a good foundation for me, spiritual, getting introduced. I would say I was getting introduced to a spiritual life, because I really, as a kid and a teenager, I wasn't really investing in my spiritual life just because I was going to church. My parents, they made us go, so I really wasn't investing in my spiritual life. When I graduated high school, and it just got kind of wild around the way for everybody around that time, 94, 95, it started really getting wild around in
Where did you
757.
grow up as far as wild?
Hampton, Newport News, Virginia, known as Bad News for those who really, really have heard the story of Allen Iverson, Michael Vick, Aaron Brooks, Mike Tomlin, all of those great athletes who've rose to the occasion, came out of the neighborhood and done great things with their lives and for their families and for thousands of people. And so I always honor and respect those brothers for what they did, because so many around the way didn't make beat with the same, maybe not the same talent, skill, but good enough, just didn't have that opportunity to go where they took it. And so I'm just blessed to know those brothers. But at the end of the day, 757 Hampton, Newport News, Virginia. And so that's where I grew up at. When things really got rough, when I graduated high school, I got in a situation, and my father, he moved me to the mountains because I had to get away. I needed change. I needed a different environment. And I was just getting into stuff, man. And so my cousin TA, God rest his soul, his parents sent him with me when we both moved to the mountains of Rocky Mount, Virginia. And we stayed with one of my father's old schoolmates, JT, out there. And out there is nothing but cows and hills, bro, and deer season. I actually totaled a car, man. I hit a deer, and the guy came, the tow truck guy came out there and was like, "Yeah, man, it's deer season." I was like, "What? I ain't never heard of that. Deer season."
That's like what
I
happened to
never
my
heard of
cousin.
that, but yeah, my father and TA, his parents, they moved us both out there, and that was '95. That was around the same time of the Million Man March.
Mm.
Okay, and so TA had just had his first son, Tavon. I had just got out of a situation around the way, and so we both was kind of looking for some kind of change in our life when they moved us out there. And so the Million Man March happened, and we both kind of watched it on TV. And so, I started leading towards Islam at that point in my life. I was about 18. I was about 18 years old.
What were those influences to lead you towards Islam? Because I've read Malcolm X's book, and even in your book, I have it here in the notes. There was a verse where the statement literally translated, "Say being a man maketh myself God." You mentioned that in the book.
Right. And right there, I was talking about my theological thoughts on the name of God. So I was just trying to show how in the church and a pretty much Christian society, I guess, it's something about that word Allah. Some people, they give them the shivers. Some people, they just don't want to hear it. Some people just don't care about it because it just identifies with, the Muslim faith, the Islamic. I was trying to show that when you read at the manuscripts of the scriptures from the Quran, the Gospels, and the Torah, the Old Testament, when you look at the name of God, it's dealing with language. So if I say Allah, I'm just saying God. Now, from an Islamic perspective, they have their own interpretation of that word Allah or that word God. Just like if I say God in the Greek is Theo, or in the Hebrew, Elohim, in the English, God. So it's just the same word or the same meaning but different. So I'm dealing with language. So when I quoted the gospel there, I was quoting it in the Arabic language. And if you read it in the Arabic language, you see the word God even in the gospels. The word God is still going to say Allah in Arabic, but it's the gospels. So all I'm saying is basically you're dealing with language. And I felt like people shouldn't be afraid of God's name in different languages. Like it shouldn't just be, you got to say God. If you say something else, you believe in something different. I just feel like that ain't true. You know what I'm saying?
So what do you think brings up that difference? Because having grown up, I did go to a Christian school, and there was a huge, huge disconnect when people would say Allah is not God. Like we had teachers in Bible class, we had teachers all over the place saying, no, the God of the Bible is not the same God as in the Muslim tradition. And then people, not everyone, but people like myself and others that knew other religions, or at least knew people of them, would sit there and go, okay, but that doesn't make sense, because that Abraham and the Torah is the same Abraham you would see in the Muslim religion. They're not separated. So why is God / Allah different? And then there was a debate we had one time, like, okay, we're reading the Quran. What really makes this different? Is it our ideal that this is the God we serve? Is it the language barrier, like you mentioned, the going back and forth? Or is it just, no, this is a separate debate altogether, they're being treasonous against God and religion, etc. So what do you think started that separation? And then we'll go back to you looking into becoming a Muslim before subscribing to Yeshua or Jesus.
It's basically looking at God, looking at Allah as one. And that's the foundation. Like God is one. Hear, O Israel, the Lord thy God is one. There's only one God, there's one creator. So at the end of the day, the problem is people don't understand there are different interpretations of understanding and reaching this, our creator. There's only, and now this is my thoughts, okay? And other people have different thoughts, but this is mine. So for instance, for the Hebrew, you know, their way of interpreting God, Elohim, was through, Moses and the Torah, all right, in the Tanakh, in the prophets. And then when you get to followers of Yeshua, of Jesus, they interpret and they believe to reach the Creator through the way of Christ and salvation in Christ. And then when you get to the Muslims, as far as foundation of Islam, they interpret Allah, God, a way of having that relationship and reaching Allah through the last prophet Muhammad. And that's what I try to get to in Raq Liktov, book 1 that you got. They all come from the same deity, which is God, Allah, and Elohim in these specific religions. But it's a way of interpreting the deity as far as reaching that deity or being right with that deity, understanding that deity. And that's all it is. Because at the end of the day, Isaac and Ishmael was brothers. And it's said to be Ishmael was the father of the Arab and Isaac, the father of the Hebrews. But they brothers at the end of the day coming out of Abraham's seed. And God is still going to bless Ishmael, and he's going to make his covenant with Isaac that we see in Genesis. So at the end of the day, we all family. So back to when I was dealing with Islam out in the mountains with my cousin TA, I was trying to find truth because I come out of the hip hop culture, right?
And there's a
And
lot of Muslim belief in the hip hop culture.
a lot of Muslim Islam belief in the hip hop culture in the 5% nation as well, because around the way, around that time, 94, 95, a lot of brothers around the way, they started dealing with the 5% nation. Peace to my brothers, the Born Naturals, from downtown Newport News. They started dealing with the 5% nation. And then you have brothers out there who started dealing with the scrolls and Malachi York.
Mm-hmm.
They started going hard in the streets with that. And I gave my life to Yeshua. I gave my life to Christ. So when I was out there with these brothers, with my brothers, they was going in and doing their research. They was doing their knowledge to the scrolls and to the mathematics, and they was going in, and I was just standing my ground before I converted to Christ. I was dabbing in those things too, just from the music and everything, and listening to the music and how it was influencing me. That's really when my spiritual journey began. Okay, listening to the music and just being in that culture and that environment of people tapping into knowledge and spirituality and ways of understanding life, being Black Americans and things like that. That started it, and that's what moved me towards, okay, I started looking into Islam. But it wasn't until I went to the mountains and I was kind of isolated from everything, and I was just with my cousin, and I was started going to the library because we went to college out there together. We went to Virginia Western Community College. I would go to the library and I would read the Quran in the library. And then once I read in the Quran that Allah is a spirit, is not a man, that canceled me out from the 5% perspective, even though I love and appreciate it. Because my brothers out there in Roanoke, Virginia, my brothers Alvin and Andre, they went hard with 5%. I met them at a record store out there, and they was hard with the 5% and everything. And so I would hang with them, and they would talk it and everything. And so, but when I started reading, and I saw the Quran had said that, I was like, you know what? The Quran is saying Allah is not a man. It's not a man, but a spirit. So based on my knowledge at that time, I was like, you know what? I ain't gonna embrace the 5%. I'll embrace it as, you know what I'm saying, a part of my people and their culture. And that's a beautiful thing for them. That shapes and molds their mentality and lifestyle. And God bless my brothers and sisters. But at the end of the day, I was like, nah, I'ma just deal with the Islam. I was like, I ain't gonna do the 5%. I'ma just deal with the Islam. So I started dealing with that out there. And when I was dealing with that out there, I was still reading the Bible too. But basically, it was one particular night where I had an experience where I was with Alvin and Andre, and I was riding around with them, sitting in the back seat. The Most High was showing me my life. It was crazy, like it's something that never happened to me before and never happened to me again. But the situation, the Most High for the first time was speaking to me, to my spirit, was speaking to me. And so the Most High was like, because we were just riding around, hanging out that night in Rono. And the Most High was like, before you leave tonight, tell them you believe in Jesus Christ. Because I'm dealing with, I'm struggling at this time in my spiritual walk and my understanding. So he's like, tell them you believe in Jesus Christ. Christ is the way. The Lord Jesus is the way to God. So I ain't really paying it no mind. I'm in the back seat, and it's like people I would see remind me of people back home, and just so much things is I was bugging out behind it. So I confessed Christ in the back seat of their car. Now they 5%ers, and they was doing their thing, and they was speaking their language of it. But in the backseat of their car, I confessed Christ. So when it was time for me to go, you know what I'm saying, I get out the car and I'm gonna go jump in my car to go back to Rocky Mount. But before I do that, I turned around, I went back to their car and I was like, Alvin, who you believe in? He said, man, I'm God. I believe in myself. I'm my own God. I was like, what about you, Andre? He's like, I'm my own God. I was like, word. I was like, well, look, bro, I believe in Jesus Christ, man. And that was my first time I confessed Christ to somebody, in my life and my belief system. And so I still hung out with him and everything. It wasn't like, but I just found the foundation of my faith base that night.
So with that said, I have two questions. One, what was their response to when you said that? Because you guys still hung out. And being of a certain ethnicity, having seen different sects of people, it doesn't matter what it is, religion, ethnicity, beliefs, admitting something that is personal to you can sever a friendship or it can sever a family. So what was their response to that? And then the more important question I want you to hit after is, you said you felt God talking to you. There's many ways God talks to people. Everyone has their own individual thing. For me, as I mentioned this before in other videos, I tell God, make it clear as day. Like, make it something I can't question, something I know in my heart, because I tend to overthink it. Maybe I'm just thinking this for a reason. But the best example I have was I did an interview with the comedian Jeff Allen, and he said his way of thinking changed. His conscience. It was still his head, but it was like, oh, usually I'd lash out, but a very clear state of mind came over me, and I did this instead. Kind of like when Paul or people explain how people wrote the Bible. It's God inspired. It's still the writer, it's still the person writing it, but God's leading the way. So when God speaks to you, or at least spoke to you in the back seat, how did you know? It's like, okay, this is not me. This is a higher power telling me I have to do this.
I knew it was God because, shucks, it was like the heat I felt over my body. I ain't gonna lie, you know what I'm saying? It was like God was dealing with me, asking me questions like, are you saved? And I'm in the back seat, and I would answer those questions. Sitting in the back seat, I'm like, nah. And then it come to me like, if you ain't saved, man, you go to hell in the second death. Shucks. Things like that. And so this what sealed it for me, even till this day, which is, so maybe 24 or 5 years later, this is what sealed it for me, man. After I told them I believed in Jesus Christ, I confessed Christ, I got in my car. The ride back to Rocky Mount, Virginia was 30 minutes. I got in my car, I got on the highway 220, leaving Rono, going back to Rocky Mount, Franklin County. When I got in the car and I started driving, God speaks to me. He continued to speak to me. This was my night. And so he says to me, I want you to preach. Don't tell nobody but your father in the church. Because my father was a pastor at the time and everything. After that happened, God, it was like cars would drive in front of me, and their license plate would be a scripture. And then the minute that I would recognize that's a scripture, Psalm something, it would drive off, kind of just drive off, and then another car would do it. And that was happening on it, the Most High is my witness. That was happening to me that night on the interstate. And I knew it was kind of a scary night. I ain't gonna lie. So that was happening on the ride back to the. So when I got back to the crib, I was staying at. I ain't go to sleep. I started reading the Bible. Then that early that morning when I woke up, TA was staying in the basement there. I went down there and told my cousin TA, like, yo, I was like, yo, man, I confessed the Lord Jesus to them dudes last night and everything. And man, I'm following the Lord, And TA was still kind of doing his thing. And he was really, because he was reading How to Eat to Live and things like that. And TA was on that at that time. That's what sealed it for me. Like, okay, one, I believe in the Lord Yeshua. And two, he want me to preach the gospel. So what happened was after that semester, well, the semester wasn't quite over with, but when you know how the holiday break come?
Yeah.
I went home for the holiday. Me and TA, we go back around and wait for the holiday or whatever. I'm back home. They had the watch night service at churches to come into the new year. And my father, at Macedonia Baptist Church, it used to be on Pear Avenue. Now it's on Marshall Avenue around the way. So I'm in the den at my parents' house, and I'm just talking to my mother about everything going on with me and my spiritual life. And she kind of just looking at me like, wow, God is in his life now, But they had a little stool for my sister, and they had her name in blocks on it, like when she was a baby. My sister Shauna, God bless my beautiful sister Shauna, and it had her name in blocks on it. It was a little stool, but I was standing on top of that stool. You know what I'm saying? Looking down to my mother, talking about God and just going in about God and everything. So while I was doing that, I just stopped. And I was like, Mom, I'm preaching. You know what I'm saying? And she looked at me, she was like, yeah. So I said, all right. I was like, Mom, the Lord told me, called me to preach. I told my mother that real talk. I said, the Lord called me to preach the gospel. I got to tell my dad. My dad was in the back room. He used to be like a little desk back there. It's sort of like a little study room for him. She was like, well, you want to go tell him now? You want me to go with you? I was like, nah, I'm going to tell him by myself.
How was your relationship with your father? Because I know if I were to go to my dad with certain situations, it may be tense or it may be relaxing. Like, say I hurt myself or I need a question answered that is not of a moral context, but of, like, say, okay, how would you fix an engine? Okay, I'm bleeding from my hand or this or that. I love going to my dad for those questions. But if I have to go to him for a more serious question as far as morals, I'm a little bit more hesitant because we've always butted heads in the past with that. So that's where I would say there's a little contention with us. Like, how were you and your dad as far as your relationship on the Christian aspect?
But like I said, growing up in the church for me, like, it was just an introduction to my spirituality, just spirituality in general, because I never really tried to be a disciple of the Lord as a teenager and a kid growing up in church, but I had to go. But my father, he had witnessed some of the, things that I had to go through and endure and the troubles and things that came my way or whatever. He knew some of the lifestyles I was living, around the way. When I went back there to tell him, because my father was always supportive, always supportive and things. We do of the right thing, though. Of the right thing. He ain't gonna support if you out there running around getting into junk. He ain't supporting that. But he'll support the right thing, period. So at the end of the day, I go back there. I tell, hey, Dad, I gotta tell you something. What's up? God want me to preach. He told me to tell you. That's what I tell my father. What God told me to tell him. My dad looks at me and say, I know. I just been waiting for you to tell.
Ooh, all right. Got a little Samuel situation going on. I know it's a little different. But
Right. I was like 18 years old at the time. He said, I know. I was just waiting for you to tell. So I was like, well, I got to tell the church too. You know what I'm saying? He was like, all right, you tell the church. So, but he said, this the thing, because he just started talking to me about just like instantly. He just started talking to me about like being a preacher and stuff like that. He was like, so what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna send you, because we was finishing up the school out there in the mountains, and we couldn't take the hills and the cows no more. We were coming back home, you know what I'm saying? We was coming back home. So he was like, what I'm gonna do is, he's like, I'm gonna send you to the seminary he went to when he got back from Vietnam in Lynchburg, Virginia Seminary and College, but they changed the name now to Virginia University of Lynchburg. But it was Virginia Seminary and College. So what he was like, what I'm gonna do is send you to the seminary because I want you to be around preachers and see about preachers and everything. And I don't want you to think preaching is like some pie in the sky type of thing. Preachers, they sin too and stuff. I just want you to be exposed to preachers. So I was like, all right. He was like, but this is the thing. And I want to make sure I say this right. If I say it right the first time, it's beautiful. He said, you called to preach. He said, you could run from it, put it off, and then turn 30 years old. I'm 18 at the time. He was like, you could run from it, put it off. The calling ain't going nowhere. This is what God wants you to do. This is what God wants you to do. It ain't going nowhere. So you could run from it, you could put it off, turn 30 years old and realize this is something you're supposed to be doing in life. And at 30 years old, start preaching the gospel. Or, you called to preach. You could start preaching now at 18, 19 years old. And by the time you turn 30 years old, you know a little bit about what you're doing. He schooled me with that. That's how things like Raq Liktov and all these things come about. Because I started at an early age diving into the word of God. And that's how, wanting to learn the languages and things like this, hanging around with the 5%ers and the Malachi York scroll dudes and all of these people into this stuff. And at the corner store with the Arabs, they teaching me little Hebrew words, writing it on a piece of paper for me, because I just had this crave to dig and learn the languages and stuff like that. But just little jewels like that my father gave me, stuff like that is what allow me to be where I am today and my personal faith walk and the things I set out to do as ministry for the Most High. You know what I'm saying? Because now, like almost 30 years later, you know what I'm saying? I ain't even gotta write a sermon. I've been preaching for almost 30 years. If I can't preach a sermon by now, I'm in the wrong business. That started the path, you know what I'm saying? So I started preaching at 19 years old.
That's awesome. That's one thing that I really find cool that it worked out. I'm a person that doesn't believe in just coincidence. I've had moments in my life where coincidence happened, and I was pretty quick to be like, you know what, this is not a sign from God. It's just happening. And then I made my decision to do it. And then I've had other coincidences where you really gotta take it in. You're like, I don't know, that's too good to be true. So with that, and you've already made the decision, okay, you're going to preach. It did say that you learned philosophy. Your bachelor's is in philosophy from Christopher Newport University. I remember specifically when I did faith and philosophy at Eastern University, my mind was blown because there were concepts I never thought of. It's like when you learn math for the first time, 2 + 2 doesn't make sense because you never heard the concept before. I'll never forget this. I was in class and they said, God can't do anything that's not possible. I was like, what? Well, God can do the impossible. No, 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 no. You don't understand. If it's not possible, God can't do it. Well, that's not really that concept. Like it's raining, but it's not raining. Little concepts now that I take for granted blew my mind. Like the teacher was losing her. Like I would ask questions even I didn't understand, and then she would have to like figure out how to answer something that didn't make sense. So knowing how technical even the beginning of philosophy is, what sparked that interest, and how do you feel that's helped you with your thinking and approaching these languages? Because a lot of the Greek thought, a lot of the early, doesn't matter what religion, a lot of those was just a lot of thinking on human existence, nature, and how we all interact. How did that help?
Let me tell you how philosophy happened for me. So me and TA, we out in Rono, out there in Rocky Mount. We going to the community college. Remember, I'm coming out of the rapping and dancing and all of that, the music. Like I'm loving the music. So when I go there to Virginia Western Community College, I get into radio and television productions. So I'm taking that, and a couple other, core classes or whatever. So they give me my first test, my first test, and I had to identify all the parts on the reel to reel.
Mm-hmm.
I had to identify all the parts on a reel to reel. That was my first test. I took that test. I took that test. I got a 43. When I got a 43, I was like, yo, man,
I don't know what this means.
I ain't about this technology learning equipment life. You know what I'm saying? And the names of buttons and all that. Like, I ain't about that. So back then you still had payphones. So it was a payphone on campus. This was 95. So I called my pops. And see, my father was a philosophy major, and he used to teach it at Hampton University and everything. So he was it because when we was growing up, my father, when he would come home from the military, he'd talk about Socrates and Aristotle and stuff like that and Plato. And I used to like just hearing those names because they was just different names. And he used to just always get philosophy or philosophize with us. And how do you know? Well, how do you know that? But how, you know what I'm saying? He just always get us like that. You know what I'm saying? It used to be crazy because it would be never ending. And he would have a ball getting us with philosophy. So I go to the payphone after that test. I call my dad. I'm like, Dad, man, this radio television, I don't think that's for me. I was like, I might do philosophy. You know what I'm saying? I just remembered it because that's something he was into, right? So I
Right.
was like, I'm on the phone with him. I'm like, I might do philosophy. So he was like, well, go to the administration office and change your major, make sure it ain't too late, you know what I'm saying? Change your major and everything. So I did that. Went up there, changed my major and stuff, philosophy. They put me in a philosophy class, right? Check this out, bro. And this is for real. When I got in my philosophy class, okay, my first paper I had to write, the instructor told me there is no wrong answer.
Say less.
This is your thoughts. This is your philosophy. This is your thoughts. Whatever you write about this particular book or this particular philosopher, you can't be wrong. This is your thoughts. You know? So I was like, oh man, wrote my stuff up, got like an 80 or whatever. I was like, I can do this. And that's how I got into philosophy when I transferred to Christian Newport, and I stayed with philosophy. Because for me, that was me. You know what I'm saying? I was like, how I am, I like to be able, and that's where all of these Raq Liktov books come from. Being able to express myself, have my own thoughts and beliefs about things, and write it, and share it. And philosophy. That's why one of my Raq Liktov books is, I think it's book 6, I believe, I'm gonna be talking about the philosophy of Jesus, where a lot of your preachers and pastors and people and scholars and professionals, professors or whoever, where they will say Jesus ain't had no philosophy. But Raq Liktov, I think is maybe book 6. I'm gonna show where I believe he did. So, you know what I'm saying? I ain't gonna get too deep into that, but you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
One of my books is gonna be on dealing with philosophy, you know what I'm saying? Because I kind of come out of that, yeah.
So now having these thoughts, now having been exposed to, like for me, Marcus Aurelius, if I were to quote anyone, it'd be him. I read his book, Meditations, and there's always a thought, there's always a statement that comes to my mind from that book. I think my favorite one is like, people say, don't think bad thoughts lest they happen, because there is power, the power of thinking makes you happen. But then he'll come up with, well, don't avoid that thought, embrace it. This is reality. It could happen. So that's an example of like what I've learned. Now it's 2007. Where are you in your life? Because it just seemed a little random. Even if, like you said, like, oh, I was having a terrible time in my life, I was miserable, all of a sudden I needed an outlet. And then you started saying, okay, God told me to just write down my thoughts. Those thoughts and writing ought to, as we are now, what, we're 6, 7 books into those thoughts and writing. Writing was your way of coping with your situation, and then they became the book series. Where were you at that time? And then walk me through, when did you go, okay, you know what, I have enough material to actually do something with this? Eh,
So see, for me, like everything is a history behind it all. So it's like for me, when my father sent me to Virginia Seminary and College, okay, I was the youngest student on campus. I was like 18, no, I was like 19. Everybody else was 30 and up. So I was the youngest guy there, except my brother Ricky, Big Rick Allen. That's my brother, but he wasn't a preacher though.
mm,
He was just attending the school. His ancestor was MC Allen, which was one of the fathers of the school. Got peace to my brother Ricky. Um, my brother Rodney. We was the only two in the dorm. He was from Baltimore. He was in the seminary, and we had this whole dorm. It was just me and him in a whole dorm. And then he moved his son down there, Lil Rod, from Baltimore. And but to get to what you're saying, um, I had an instructor named Dr. Austin. Okay, Dr. Austin. God bless my brother. I love him. God bless his soul. Dr. Austin, he taught me in history.
mm,
Okay. He taught me in history class. And I got to class early one day and we were just sitting in the class talking, me and him. And how my life have always been for real since growing up around the way as a kid. I was always the one going to see people, going to visit my man BJ, Alvin, Billy, Devan, my cousin Devan, like whoever, TA, Taya. I was always Ray. I was always the one going. My brother, people would come to the house to see him. You know what I'm saying? And
mm,
kick it with him until we go out and play football or something. But I was always the one going to other people's houses. So just saying that to say, I was always solo for dolo in my life. Like always, you know what I'm saying? Even when I started going downtown for dance troupe and all of that, catching the bus and things like I was always like a solo for dolo, but instead of when my man Ty was coming down with me, down to Dora Miller. But Dr. Austin, he said, Shaun, you're gonna live a lonely life. Cause he looked at my situation, my age, and what I was doing and my mission and purpose in life and everything, my callings. He was like, you're going to live a lonely life, but you're going to do some great things. I always remembered that. I always remembered that. And that kind of helped sustain me through the journey, believe it or not. And I'm going to tell you why. When I gave my life to Yeshua and started following the way of the Messiah, I deep in my heart, I was really like, I'm gonna tell you what I did, how bad I wanted to like change and be righteous and stuff like that, because that's where the whole Islamic thought I was having had come from. What I love about Islam too, just the desire to be righteous. You know what I'm saying? And that was the thing at that time around the way. Like brothers was getting into, like I said, the Malachi Yorks, and brothers was getting into the 5% and the righteous way of things. And so I wanted to be righteous. So when I went a different route from a lot of the brothers I had knew and grew up with, you know, brothers would still show me love, but it was like because growing up in the dance group,
Mm.
they gave me the name Preacher Shaun. They gave me the name Preacher Shaun because my father was a preacher. So they was like, your dad a preacher, you Preacher Shaun, you know? And that's how I got my dance name, right? So people knew me by that name, you know? That's Preacher Shaun right there. But when I started following the Lord, you know, brothers still showed me love and everything. But because I was in the church and stuff like that, they wasn't expecting for me to still be doing the things they were doing, you know, or being around them when they was doing certain things or going to the clubs, getting it popping again and stuff like. That's all we used to do was go to the parties and the clubs and get it popping. That's all we used to do around the way. It was so fun for me growing up, yo. I had a
Mm.
beautiful life. We had a ball. All we did was go to parties and clubs, Midtown Square, all of that, Union Hall, and dance, battle people, and keep it live. Yo. So people knew me from all of that, and people still gave me respect. You know what I'm saying? That's Preacher Shaun. But when they knew I was in the church, you know, they really wasn't expecting me to be around them and things like that, like that. So I was by myself a lot, you know, after Dr. Austin told me that, and then it was started making sense as time was going by, you know, making sense like word, because like I ain't really meet no young preachers, you know what I'm saying, until until Pastor Riddick, I guess Shimmy, his son, had became a preacher, and that was a few years later. And so we was like the only two young preachers around the way, me and Riddick. So I was just by myself a lot. So by the time 2007 hit, all right.
Quick. So when did you actually go to Israel to start your studying, and then we'll go back to where we are for the book.
So I went to Israel to study in 2006, but I applied before I finished my master's in Atlanta at ITC. I had already applied, got my passport and everything.
This Masters of Divinity, correct?
My master's of divinity from ITC, Morehouse School of Religion. Because this is what happened. I was in Atlanta, and my father had passed away in 2004. And then my beautiful grandmother had passed away like maybe 3 months later, like in 2005, early 2005. My father passed away November 2004, right? But the president of ITC was a good friend of my father. They were Army chaplains together at one point. He had Dr. Battle, Michael Battle. God bless you, sir. Respect due. He had became ambassador to Ethiopia at one point when he left ITC and done great things. I just say that to say, when my father passed, Dr. Battle came to me one day on one of the buildings out at the school on campus. And he said, Shaun, you know, how you doing? You know, sir, I'm okay, you know. I'm okay, you know, because my father was sort of like my financial lifeline working on my master's. We had a little agreement. He'd look out for me, keep a little something in the bank for me, just knock the books out, get it over with, knock it out, you know.
Yeah.
So he passed away. That had that little lifeline for me had left, whatever. But God still blessed me. My family picked up some pieces at home, and my brother, aunts, and mom, and everybody, they would help out. But at the end of the day, Dr. Battle was like, if you need anything, just let me know. Okay. So, mind you, when I was at Christopher Newport, and it's real, I tell everybody this. In my department, they had on a wall like a bunch of schools overseas that you could take one of the cards, fill it out, you mail it to the school. You know what I'm saying? They'll mail you information. One of the schools was Hebrew University of Jerusalem. So when I seen it, I was like, no, they got schools in Jerusalem? Like Jerusalem, a real place? It was always just a Bible place for me. like it's in the Bible. That's all it ever was, like for real.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't really know it was actually I wasn't into none of them. Man, all I used to do was dance, rap, play sports, that, man, party. Of course, you had to go to school, man. So I really wasn't into like that stuff. So I was like, wow, they got schools in Jerusalem, man. That's crazy. I took a card, filled it out, sent it to them. They sent me an application back. I was like, wow. They sent me an application. So that's when I was at Christopher Newport. When I graduated, I kept the application with me in my little bag or whatever. So when my father passed and I was getting closer to graduating, I was like, you know what, man? I had already had an experience, working fast food while I was in undergrad, where I got robbed. Me and the manager, we was closing the store down at Wendy's one night, and they robbed us and all that. And so from that experience, that's when I kind of conquered the fears of dying and stuff like that, even though it's a natural fear attached to it. After that experience, I was like, man, ain't nothing stopping me. I'm living my life. I'm doing whatever I want as long as I'm doing it for the Lord. And I'm taking it there. I'm doing me because I'm going to go regardless. That's what that experience did to me, getting tied up and all that. So when they sent me the application, I took it with me to Atlanta, to ITC. Dr. Bowder was like, you need anything, let me know. I went to my room. I'm figuring out what I'm going to do next. It's getting close to graduation. I got like 1 year left. What am I going to do? I was like, man, I pulled out the application. I was like, man, I'm trying to go to Israel. I want to go see where Jesus is from. But better than that, I want to go study over there where Jesus is from. Like, bump that. So I was taking Hebrew at the time. And I think I was in the second year of it. And Hebrew, that was my thing. Like Hebrew class, like when the first semester part 1 was over with, and my rabbi, Dr. Bailey, he saw I ain't signed up for the second semester, he caught me in the stairwell. He called me Shimshon. That was my Hebrew name he gave me, Shimshon. That's Samuel. Mm-hmm. No, I'm sorry, that's Samson, Shimshon. So he was like, Shimshon, you haven't signed up for part 2? Are you crazy? The potential you got. I was like, oh, I'm sorry, sir. I ain't know it was open. I could go again, take it again. He was like, go sign up for part 2, the intermediate, class. Because I finished I got an A in the introduction to Hebrew. So I went and signed up for part 2. So he saw my passion for Hebrew, but this stuff came from around the way at the corner store with the Arabs, with the Palestinians. They just teaching me words and stuff like that. So when I was actually able to learn the Bible in Hebrew, I was like, that was my candy store right there, man. That was, oh my God. So I loved it. So everybody at ITC knew me for Hebrew. That was my heart right there, Hebrew. So my application filled it out, whoop, whoop, and I sent it over there, and then I got accepted. They accepted me. So I was like, wow, so I went to Dr. Battle because I needed references, right? I needed references. I really wasn't good with a lot of the professors there, really, and like that. So I was like, you know what? I'm gonna ask Dr. Battle if he could reference me. So I set up a meeting for him. He's president of the school, and I go to sit down with him in his office. I said, sir, you ever heard of Hebrew University in Jerusalem? He's like, yeah, I've been there. I went to visit there. I took a tour and everything. I was like, what? You been there? I'm wilding out in his office, right? Like, you been there? So I was like, what? He actually heard of? So I was like, sir, I'm really, thinking about going there and pursue Hebrew and the languages and things like that. Do another master's over there. He was like, man, I got you. No problem. You'll love it. It'll be a great experience for you and everything. And so he wrote a reference for me, but I needed 2. So I went to my Ravi, Dr. Bailey.
Ravi, what does that mean?
Ravi, that's rabbi, I mean teacher.
Okay.
So he taught me Hebrew. I was like, Ravi, I'm trying to go overseas to Israel to keep studying Hebrew and the languages and get a master's from Hebrew University. He was like, you sure about that? You sure you want to do that? Everything. I was like, sir, I got to go. I was like, I said, Dr. Battle already referenced me. So he was like, oh yeah, Dr. Battle referenced you. Well, all right, then I got you. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So he wrote, so I got my 2 references, you know what I'm saying? And I got in and everything. But here's the issue to kind of allude with your question. I ain't had no money. I got accepted and everything. Went and got my passport and everything. I ain't had no money. So I called the school. I was like, look, I'm going to need some more time to get the money to come for tuition and everything. They was like, well, we got your application in. You're accepted to the school, so you're good. And so just let us know. So I graduate ITC. I head back home. And that's when I told my mother, I said, Mom, I'm going to Jerusalem. She thinking I'm playing. I'm like, for real. I showed her the acceptance letter, passport, everything. I said, Mom, the only thing I'm going to need is money. And that's what I'm dedicating myself to. I'm back home now, graduated, got my master's. I'm dedicating myself to getting the money. So I work with special autistic children for a year and got the money. I just saved it. My mom was like, don't worry about paying rent, nothing like that. I know what you're trying to do. You're doing your ministry. You're in your education ministry. I got your back. Don't worry about paying rent, nothing like that. Just get your money, save it up so you can go study. And so I did that, saved up good and got a lot of stuff paid. But then I was still short. So TA, my cousin that was with me in Rono out there, he had moved to Jersey and everything. He was living out there. So I chopped it up with him. He was like, you can come out here, work a temporary job or whatever, and get the rest of your money to go. So I did that for the summer. I worked at a bakery. It starts with an M, but it's right outside Burlington.
Manahawkin, maybe?
It's I can never remember the name of it. Maybe it started with a C. I can never remember the name of his little town, but
Because
it
now
was right outside of Burlington.
that's around my neck of the woods. You're like an hour, maybe 45 minutes to an hour from me.
Because his funeral was at, I believe it's Trinity Baptist Church in Burlington. In Burlington, yeah, that's where I did his funeral. I went out there to Jersey with him. I stayed with him for the summer. This was before I take off in the end of July.
Mm-hmm.
So I saved up enough. My aunt shot me some bread to top off the tuition cost, saved up enough, and then I preached. I preached in Baltimore at Israel Baptist Church. He went to school with my father, and they was real tight, Dr. Harley Wilson. He's been a blessing to me, you know, and I came and preached for him. He asked me to come preach, and then I went to Baltimore, preached for a couple of services, did some outside preaching to the youth and things, and then he said he knew what I was trying to do. He said, I'm going to help you out. So he went on ahead and gave me the flight money and blessed me with the flight money. And I was like, thank you so much, sir, you know, for helping me. To this day, I'm thankful to them in Israel Baptist Church in Baltimore City. But all of this came from faith in God.
Mm.
This is where I truly established and understood what faith in God meant. I was already exercising faith in God because, I mean, just me accepting my calling to preach was by faith. Accepting my confession of salvation was by faith. Everything I ever tried to do, like it's all by faith. But when this situation is when I really had to tune into my faith and just trust. I knew God was gonna make a way and get me over to Hebrew University of Jerusalem to study, you know, and God did that for me. And it was a financial situation I was in. So from all of that, I went over there, I studied and did everything. But when I came back, I was broke. I was dead spanking broke when I came back. So, you know, that's to the question you were saying, what was I dealing with when I in 2007? When I got back from Israel, I know everybody around me, man, like everybody, but it wasn't like, you know, they cool. I could go around them and kick it, yo, what's up, you know, and it's cool. But it was just me, man. You know what I'm saying? My main homie, he had moved to Boston at the time. You know, he had dipped up there and I could always hang with him, you know, but he had dipped out. It was just me. I hang with my cousin Donnell, or my cousin D-Nell. I hang with him because we work with the autistic kids together. But it was just me, man, and I was trying to figure out what am I gonna do next. I ain't really had nothing. I was broke. I was low income, working as a teacher assistant, And that's when I was sitting in my car one day in my mother's in my parents' driveway, just going through what I'm gonna do next. I ain't had no bread. And so and then book 2, I talk about, a couple bad. I'm re-editing it now, just doing a second edition to it. I'm gonna republish it, just cleaning up the mistakes and stuff. But I talk about I made the decision, a bad choice, man. I had started preaching for money, man. For real, that was wrong, bro. Calling churches, asking if I could come preach so I could get money. Like real talk, that was wrong. And the Most High let me know that's an abomination.
Now, my understanding is preachers do get paid a salary at their churches. I'm not familiar with traveling preachers because I'm of the mindset if you do something good, never do it for free. That's something I've always heard because it's like, okay, if you're not working, you're begging. And not that, it's bad to beg if we're thinking from a biblical sense, but if you have a skill, that's God's take for you to survive. So for you to say me calling churches out of desperation to preach for money, I'm having a little trouble from my perspective because I'm not a preacher. I'm having a little trouble understanding how God was telling you that was wrong. Where in there was God saying, "Hey, I, I know I got you. You gotta give me that faith." But in the meantime, like if anybody else heard that, I'm assuming this would be more so preachers of that understanding, be like, "Yeah, you were wrong." But for me, as just a person outside of preaching, I'm like, "Yo, man, that's your gift. You go make your dollar." So what was it about that?
So, and there's a lot of preachers that'll believe that with you too. Like for real, I respect that. My personal conviction is different. It's like for me, my whole thing is, God called me to preach the gospel, right? He didn't call me to having a job. That's something I do as a man, according to Genesis, working by the sweat of my brow. You know, I gotta go get a job to survive. But I don't use this me though. Everybody don't believe this. This is just what my take, my conviction. I don't believe, you know what I'm saying, in taking the word of God to get paid off. You know what I'm saying? By telling people about the love of Christ, the love of Yeshua, and getting paid to do that. You know what I'm saying? Making that a job to do. What God has given me to do for the sake of the gospel, to empower people, to enlighten people, to help people come out of ruts, and to try to just share God's love with the world, and how he showed that love through the prophets and through Yeshua, my personal savior. That's my lifestyle, right? You know what I'm saying? Even when I fall, I fail at that because I still sin. But at the end of the day, for me, preaching the gospel is the way I go about life. You know what I mean? Wherever I'm at, whoever I'm around, I'm always ready to share a word from God. So now, when it comes to pastoring a people, like on a full-time scale, and I talk about that in book 2, when you don't have time to go work somewhere else and make your money, take care of your family, because you're too consumed with the work of your church and the community you're in. You don't have, and just the demands of that congregation in that community as a pastor of a church, that's different because you got to be taken care of. You just don't have the time to be able to go work somewhere else or start your own business and make money that way, because you're too consumed with the ministry at your congregation and your community. That's different. But when it comes to just preaching, I don't believe he instructed me to preach the gospel to make money. People do, but I just don't believe in it. For me, my foundation of that is freely you receive, freely you give. You know what I'm saying? So when I want to go out and do the ministry, and when I want to go out and share with the gospel with people, and try to be a light to people. You know, I ain't looking for nothing back. I ain't looking for nobody to give me nothing. Like, that's why Raq Liktov, I don't sell Raq Liktov. I just give them to people because it's my testimony. I ain't selling my testimony. I ain't selling my soul. You know what I'm saying? I'm not selling for you to see or hear or read about what God has done for me in my life. You got to give me some money for that. Nah, I don't. That's just not me though. You know what I'm saying? I'm gonna give you that. I want you to have that. I'm sharing that with you and with the world. So what I do, I take my own money and I invest it in Raq Liktov and I give to the people. And that makes me feel comfortable in my skin as far as the ministry God has given me. I don't do it for money. You know what I'm saying? And then also, I believe it's Micah 3:11 kind of helps me understand why I'm like that, because a lot of preachers don't believe, a lot of preachers ain't gonna like this book too, you know, for real, because I talk about, no, go get a job, man. Go get a job and make your money. Don't try to use the gospel to make money where I'm evangelist and that's your business. But at the end of the day, if you choose to do that, I ain't judging nobody. I can't judge nobody. So if you choose to do that, that's between you and God. My personal though, me, I'm giving it, man. God gave it to me, and I'm giving it to people. I'm not making money off preaching, you know what I'm saying? And so that's how that happened for me.
I know we skirted off to the side, but I just had to ask about the preaching making money. So it's 2007. You just came back and you broke, and God was like, "All right, write, just write to deal with it." And I loved how you have put it in the book. Like, this is, I would say for me, there was 2 chapters that were really big, but this was one of them. This was the first one I hit where it was the idea of dealing with your situation, and writing is the way you deal with it. So with that said, and now that you've set the basis of like, okay, where you are, how long was it till you said, okay, I have enough that I can actually share this with the world? And what was that process of editing and going for it? I'm assuming they were like in notebooks and you said, okay, this is great, let me put this out there. But the way the book is, you have sections where it's like, okay, as a preacher, we get a lot of scrutiny if we screw up one time and people forget we're human. Or there you jump to, okay, the language barrier we have between the Aramaic and the Hebrew and the English. Um, it was a little mind-boggling the way you were able to take these things that are all different and layer it in the book. That's like, okay, you know what, this is something that flows, even though this is a huge left turn, maybe even a U-turn from what was just spoken about or read.
So how that came about, two things. One, when you look at like the theologians and the ancient philosophers, um, people like that, they would write in volumes, in their volumes. Like, I would go in libraries and this one person would have like volumes about just different topics. Theologians would write, like, they would just have volumes of stuff and it would just be different topics they'd be talking about. Some of them would be talking about a theology they made, they made up. That was like the concept of Raq Liktov, just right. I was like, you know what? All those guys from the past and the ancients and even modern times, theologians and philosophers, they would write about different stuff, their thoughts and beliefs, and create their own ideas and everything. I was like, you know what? Why I can't do that? I'm just as much a theologian as they are. You know, I'm just as much as a philosopher as they are. So I was like, why can't I do that? So just right. That's why it's like that. You just got different topics of discussion. That's all it is. It's really one book. I wrote it as one book. And it was like, I want to say 350 pages, almost 400 pages. Mm-hmm. All right. And that's this is just book 1, book 2, book 3. So what happened was the first chapter of the book, Just Right, Raq Liktov, Just Right, the first chapter is book 1 with subtopics in it. And then the second chapter I turned into book 2. with subtopics. And in the third chapter, I turned into book 3 with subtopics and so on and so forth. And I did that because, first of all, I sent the book to a publishing company to try to get it published. And these jokers sent it back and gave me a publishing contract. They were offering me, I had to pay them 20-something grand just to publish it. And then I only get like 3% of the royalties. I was like, you gotta be kidding me, man. I just ripped it up in the room, said, man, you know what I'm gonna do? Forget all that fancy stuff. You know what I'm saying? I'm gonna take my book, I'm gonna publish my own book. Not only that, I'm gonna break my book down into different books, because having one big 300, 400 page book, it probably is way too much for somebody, people that really don't read like that, especially I really wanted to gear toward, that's why I got it in big print like that. I really wanted older people to be able to read it too. You know what I'm saying? They could see it better. But at the end of the day, I broke it down like that and just published it. Each chapter I published, and that's how you got book 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on.
So how do you go about publishing yourself with no help? Because I am looking at the book right now, and every time I'm looking at the part where it should say like this publisher, it pretty much has your name there. The only thing I could see is printed in the U.S. by Morris Publishing in
Right.
New England. So how do you go about publishing yourself? Do you have to use another publisher to say like, hey, we'll come up with an arrangement, I pay you this much and you give me this much of my book? Or do you just use their printing? I'm unfamiliar with that strategy.
It's simple. You don't mind me giving you the history to that. My boy Ralph, we was roommates at ITC in Atlanta. He was an Afrocentric type of guy, really into Africa and everything, and I respect that about him. And he helped me kind of get to that level of mentality too. But at the end of the day, Ralph, it was in the Navy. We graduated. This was some years later and everything, but we stayed in touch. You know what I'm saying? I'm a type of guy, I'd like to try to stay in touch with people, man, like you, my brothers. But so we stay in touch. But he had moved to Norfolk, Virginia with the Navy. All right. And when he came to Norfolk, I believe it was on Facebook, he hit me up, was like, I'm in Norfolk or whatever. I was like, what? I was like, man, come see me. So matter of fact, it was a Thanksgiving. And he had came over to my mother's house and everything. And he brought his book with him. He had published a little book, about prayer. I was like, man, you published it. How you do that? So, and I had Raq Liktov, like Whitney and everything, but it's like it wasn't publishing nothing. And I was seeing what I could do with it. So I was like, man, I got my book, man. I'm trying to publish my book. Man, I was like, I'm gonna come over and see you, man. You break it down to me and go through it. So I went to go see Ralph one day and one weekend, and I sat down with him in his apartment, and he just showed me how to do the formatting, because it's the same published company he had, Moore's Publishing. He just showed me how to do the formatting, what they're gonna ask for formatting, and he just gave me the format and everything. So I took Raq Liktov, put it in that format that they accept, and all you do is, man, you put it in a format and the Word document, PDF it, send it to them. Then they'll send you a proof. You make sure it's how you want it. If make any corrections, you put that in red ink, send it back to them. They publish and next thing you know, you got your book. They just print it out for you. And the thing about it is, like I said, man, I ain't had no money. Like I ain't had money for stuff. I couldn't get no editor. I ain't had no money. So I was like, you know what? It go back to like my pastor, Dr. Dunning, God bless you, sir. He really helped me get to where I am today back in Lynchburg, Virginia. He was my teacher. He was my preaching teacher, first preaching teacher at Virginia Seminary College in Lynchburg, but he pastored the church, Jericho Baptist Church. And Pastor Dunning been riding with me the whole ride, because when I told my father I was called to preach, he said, I'm going to send you to Lynchburg to the school, and when you get out there, don't talk to nobody but Dunning. I'm still running with Dunning 25 years later. Real talk. But Dunning used to put me on to like taking it there as a black preacher. Okay. Dunning was like the first one to teach me about the history of Black preachers, what we bring to the table in America, the presence, the importance of the presence of Black preachers. Because like my dad, Dunning, Dr. Wilson, I mentioned in Baltimore, all of them, they came up in that civil rights era. And being a Black preacher was a lot different from being a Black preacher today.
Mm-hmm.
So I got a lot of my formation and my theology and everything from Dunning and the Black experience as a preacher and everything. So what Dunning, what he taught me was everybody got a story. It's better for you to tell your story than somebody else. One of the first Jews Dunning taught me. I'm like 19 years old, so I'm all ears listening to these preachers and my pastors and everybody. Back then, man, I was just all ears, man. Give me what you got, build me up, you know. So that's Dunning taught me about Black preaching, you know. So when I published Raq Liktov, I was like, man, I ain't got no money for editing and all that. I barely got money to publish 100 copies of it. You know what I'm saying? So I was like, you know what? I'm going to do me. I'm going to be me. I'm going to write me, man. And it be what it be. I'm going to make sure the words are spelled right, but everything might not pan. You know, you're going to see some mistakes and this and that. I'm going to put it in there. Please excuse the errors because I ain't got no money for no editor. You know what I'm saying? But at the end of the day, I'm going to keep it real. I'm going to keep it 100. This going to be all me. Organic book writing. And some people may say, well, that's unprofessional and you make yourself look bad and you don't make yourself look professional and all of that. Well, I ain't trying to be professional when it comes to my writing ministry. I'm trying to share, I'm trying to enlighten, I'm trying to give knowledge, I'm trying to enlighten, I'm trying to inspire, and I'm trying to introduce and expose people to different facets of the Bible that they believe that they may have never tapped into. You know what I'm saying? I ain't really trying to be no famous or be nothing special with it. I just want to share what God has given unto me in my ministry journey. I ain't trying to do nothing fancy with Raq Liktov. So I was like, that's why I got the second edition of book 1, because I went back, I saw where I was messed up, and okay, I need to check. So I did a re-edit and put out the second edition. I'm doing the same thing with book 2 and book 3, which you'll get in probably next week. It reads pretty good. So I ain't gonna do no second edition of book 3. It reads pretty good. So because the more I would write, continue to write and write and everything, the better I would get with writing and editing and all that.
And I find that interesting because when I read this, it was more of like, okay, I'm dealing with somebody who knows his stuff. This guy's professional. I'm gonna throw it out there. The picture you got on the back of yourself, I was like, oh, this is a brother. We got this. Let's go. All right, I could read this, you know. But you know, hearing you speak, even when I reached out to you on Facebook,
yeah,
just for the interview, and you know, you caught me off guard. I always try and be not professional, but very respectful because time is money. You know, time is, you know, there's so many other things people have to do. And having worked a lot, I understand, you know, how precious time can be. So, you know, you're hitting me with things like, yo, man, we could chop it up and stuff like that. I'm like, oh, he's be like, oh, all right, hold on. You know, keep it nice. But just wanted to express to the audience who may have not read the book, you know, reading this book, it was more of like, okay, I'm dealing with a college professor I had back in college. You know, I'm dealing with somebody who's thought to organize, somebody who is commanded, at least. You know what? Command is not a good word. I want to say I'm trying to think of a big word who has mastered at least the English language and the ability to convey the thought, you know, of what they want you to see via the written word. And now you're talking to me back and forth like, yo, man, I'm telling you, word up, bless up. You know, we got to throw out to our Muslim brothers and stuff. You know, it's not too far to say like, okay, you know, I can definitely see these being together, but it's the style of how it's presented. The same thought, it's just how it's presented. You know, that I want to throw out the idea that that's so cool to me. You know, you're saying like, oh, I had to edit it, and you know, I was struggling. I'm like, bro, you know, I'm pretty sure it's like one of the first editions. I'm like, I didn't catch any mistakes, so.
Yeah, you got the first edition. Yeah. I mean, and then believe it or not, my personality, it's hard for me to you know, talk differently and talk like in certain situations, you know, sometimes I could be in meetings or I could be around certain people. I gotta speak where I feel like, you know, you can understand me. All
Mm-hmm.
right. And I don't want to throw you off with how I speak. But at the end of the day, I still have to be myself. And so one of the things I really loved about my father was that, you know, he was an Army chaplain, he retired, lieutenant colonel. You know, he was a pastor of a church and did great ministry outreach for youth. You know, everybody and their uncle know my dad remember my father around the way and the works he done for the community. Used to teach at Hampton University, you know what I'm saying, professor, and all of these things. But the thing about my father was this. I remember I could be down the street when he could pull up in the driveway and see me and be like, yo, Shaun Doe. He'd call down the street to me. You see what I'm saying? He'd be
Yeah.
like, yo, Shaun Doe. That's where I took on my name Shaun Doe from. My father used to be like, yo, Shaun Doe. He would still say, yo. You see what I'm saying? But to me, you know what I'm saying? He wouldn't be at the church saying, yo, Shaun, and nothing like that. But he'll be like, yo, because one thing about my father and my parents, really, they always stay connected to their neighborhood because their neighborhood is their family. It's like they come from the old Newsom Park. And so that's a big family out there. And so they always stay connected to their friends, the people they grew up with, and all of that, you know, and it was always a brotherhood with my father and his friends if they wasn't his own brothers. It
Mm-hmm.
was a brotherhood with all those guys. Donald Boone, Kenny, Glenn, Dave, Mr. Dave, all my dad friends was like his brothers. And they just communicated like that. And so I get that from him. It's like, you know, I'm talking to you, you know what I'm saying? And we I don't know what generation you from, but at the end of the day, I know I'm speaking where you understand what I'm saying, you know. Like it's just hard for me, like even with preaching, that's what turned me off with preaching. With preachers, when they get up there and put this voice on. I'm like, if you in Walmart just talking to somebody in line, you ain't gonna be talking like that.
Mm-hmm.
Or if you talking to your daughter about school, you ain't gonna be talking like that. So this is me personally though. That turns me off. Like I don't want to hear you put on some voice because you in the pulpit or you want to show you a preacher or something. You gotta put this voice on. It just turns me off, man. I just do. I just like regular people, man. Be you, express yourself, be clear and respectful, and it's all good. You know what I'm saying? You're not disrespecting nobody.
And
So
you
that's
know,
all, man. That's just me. That's my build up and my makeup.
and I appreciate that thinking because I've definitely had times where I've spoken to somebody and it wasn't a use of slang that I was using. It was just an idea. Like I don't know if you ever saw Moneyball, but I was talking to somebody and we were having a huge, disagreement, misunderstanding. And, she said something along the lines of like, I was trying to be respectful, not to hurt your feelings. And I go, well, bullet in the head or two in the chest. That's a quote from the movie Moneyball where they were firing somebody and he's like, I don't want to hurt his feelings. And he goes, make it quick, make it painless. She looked at me and was in all confused, like, what does that even mean? I'm like, you know what? Let's change the style of the words. And I've had situations where you acclimate to whom you're speaking with, But I'll tell you, you made me remember something as far as the preaching goes. I was at a graduation. There's a famous teacher at my school, my alma mater, Eastern University, named Tony Campolo, and he was giving the speech for the graduating class. They want to speak about brothers. One of my brothers, Ryan Martin, shout out to you and family. He was graduating, and I just remember Tony Campolo. I want to say he's from a Baptist sect from Christianity, but he was preaching like a black preacher, and it
Okay.
was for me. It was great because that school at the time, it may have changed, was very sheltered. A lot of the kids were sheltered. I had conversations with one kid. He lost his faith in God because of the discrepancy of Old Testament God versus New Testament God. I'm sitting here like, yo, they the same God. And he's like, no, I can't believe in a God that would say kill everybody in the Old Testament and then say I love you in the New Testament. I'm like, bro, I used to get beat as a kid. Like, it wasn't uncommon to hear dads go like, boy, I made you, I will make another one. Like, don't do that. And it's not the idea of like, oh, your life is meaningless, you're nothing. It's more of like, boy, come on, man, like you're better than this, all about interpretation. But I do remember he started preaching, and it was, for me, it was great. I was like, oh, I can get down with this. But even better, I saw so many parents, so many families just start to cringe, or like, what is he doing? Like, you could feel the uncomfortability in the crowd. And I was like, oh, this is great. I love this. Hold on. Where's the popcorn? So
Right.
very, very interesting to see the dynamics of how people preach and speak. Again, gonna pull back before the next section of the question I had. You said one of your teachers told you you're gonna have a very lonely life,
Yeah,
but you're gonna
man.
do great things, and that gave you comfort.
Yeah.
I've been struggling with, I don't want to say a message, but there's a thought I had. I had a dream, and when I woke up, something was on my mind to write this down. This is very important, and I got it right here. I'm not gonna share what it says, but the two things I've been struggling with. One, I made an instant connection. This statement on this wall right here, you guys can't see, has been mentioned 365 times in the Bible. That's supposed
Wow.
to be God's way of saying, like, hey, stick with this. Then
Okay.
again, when I look at it, it's a Paul situation where, for me, I know this is something that's has biblical connotation, or God or universe, whatever. It means something to me, but I'm not really getting that feeling of solace, of relaxation when I see it or think about it. And then I think about Paul, like, yo, him writing, like, okay, you know what? I'm not worried because God's with me. Bro, were you really thinking that when they were stoning you with a big wall? Like, oh, I'll be all right, pop. As humans, when we're in the moment, even if we have the answer, we know it's the right answer, and we keep pushing, we still feel off. So how would you explain, I don't want to say overcoming a fear, but taking those words, taking whatever message God is giving you in your time of trial, and reaffirming it, even though you're not going to get that coming to God moment? Like Tyler Perry said, I think it was 3 years, maybe 2 years, he was living in his car, and he was like, God, I know I'm supposed to do this. Where's the breakthrough? How do you keep yourself going when you're not seeing it, but you know that is exactly what you need to do?
It's all about um and that's why I don't preach for money, man. It's all about being faithful. It's book 3 right here, man, talking about Amin, Aman, faithful and trustworthy. It's all about being faithful. You know what I mean? Because the bottom line is this, you walking with the most high, but you still responsible for surviving. You still responsible for like experiencing this human life. It rains on the evil and the good. Everybody get wet. It's like because you walking with the most high and you got the love of Yeshua in your heart, that don't mean you ain't gonna have no struggles and hard times. That ain't gonna mean you ain't gonna get sick or disease. That don't mean like you gonna have some kind of perfect life and all that. You still a human being at the end of the day. So you got to still face the life of a human being that you are. Whatever can happen. My mentality was just this. If it can happen to somebody else, look, when I got robbed and tied up at Wendy's, man, I was just trying to make some money to help me through college. But when that happened to me, and I was a pastor at that time at a church in Howardton, Virginia, right outside of Tappahannock, where Chris Brown is from. I was pastoring a church out there at the time. But I was working at Wendy's too to help me get through undergrad. And when that happened to me, when we got robbed, man, that's when I saw. Just because I'm a preacher, a pastor, don't mean something won't happen to you. So I'm just saying all that to say, when it comes to waiting on God for anything, the bottom line is you got to build your waiting tolerance, man. You just got to wait. But you got to work while you're waiting.
Mm.
You got to work while you're waiting. You know what I'm saying? You preach in season and out of season. And things may not be going right now, might be slow or whatever, but you still doing something. And no matter where you are, for the preacher, no matter where you are, you a preacher at that place in that moment. See, it ain't about, that's what I talk about in book 2. It ain't about, you know what I'm saying, the suit and the tie in the pulpit. It ain't about that, man. I was working, like I talk about in book 2. I used to work labor ready, man. That helped me get through when I would come back to Virginia from Atlanta for the summertime. I would go to labor ready. 5 a.m, sign in. And I would see all kind of brothers from around the way in the hood and everything, getting their trying to get a job for the day. But that's their business, you know.
Mm-hmm.
What's up, man? We there trying to work. But the thing was, man, I'm a preacher there. And I remember I was on one job site, we doing some construction or something. I saw like a deacon or somebody from the church, and when he saw me, it was me with the hat, heart, and everything. He gave me this funny look, like, "What you doing?" You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I ain't supposed to be surviving because I'm a preacher. So at the end of the day, man, this is what I believe. God, faith, your faith in the Most High, man, is gonna get you whatever God got for you. It's gonna come by your faith and your ability to wait and using your faith, trusting God. That's what it's all about, man. That's why book 3 I talk about, I use my middle name as a basis. Amin, faithful and trustworthy. They like twins, man. You start off with faith, but your faith leads to trust. You know what I mean? Faith is how you believe and everything, but trust is you actually acting on that belief. That's why I say in book 3, having faith in your faith. It's one thing to have faith, but do you have faith in what your faith is supposed to do something for you? Your faith is going to do something for you, but you got to let it. Do you have faith that your faith is going to work for you? Or
And
you just, oh, I got faith. It's just a phrase, a cliche, but it is actually a way of life, man. That's what I learned from these struggles and things, just trying to make it in this ministry, man. Your faith has got to be a way of life. You just wait on God, man. You don't want to do it, but just wait. And God never fails, bro. He just never failed me, period. Like, never, ever. And I done some dumb things as a preacher, as a minister. I done made some mistakes and all that, bro. But the Most High has never failed me. And I matured in that. You mature in that. When you get to the point where it's nothing for something, you want something to happen, man, and God to do something in your life or whatever, and it's nothing for you to just wait on God and trust God and enjoy that and just be trusting. I'm good. Like, you get to a point where it's like, I trust he got this. I'm good, man. You get to that point.
so for me, my faith, always the biggest moments that I tell other people, it's always like I was very nonchalant about what was going to happen. And it's really remarkable for me. Like, for me, you know, I have 2 stories I always tell people when it comes to faith in God. And my favorite thing to base it off of is Samuel's mother. For those who don't know, Samuel, great prophet, anointed David, anointed Saul, pretty much was the head guy. It's like him, Elisha, Elijah. Those are some of the top prophets that, we're having actual conversation with God like this. And the thing is, a teacher in school said, challenge God, not disrespectfully, but always, if you feel like you're putting in the work, say, God, are you going to come through? Because God likes to stunt. He likes to show off. Our God is a God that likes to say, look what I did. And that's not a bad thing. So I always tell people, if you're struggling, look at Samuel's mom, like, did everything right, just couldn't have a kid, was like physically crying over it. And, pretty much the priest at the time was like, what's wrong with you, drunk? She's like, no, I'm trying. God's not providing. He's like, all right, well then, God will hold you up. Ask him to, put it out there. Like, hey, I'm doing right. And then she had her son and she fulfilled, and then she got so much more on her faith. So for me, I remember one time, my mom always brings this up. She told me, John, how are you going to pay for college? I did not care about college. I was very nonchalant about college. If I knew anything back then that I know now, I probably would have screwed myself worse. But I was like, don't worry about it. God will pay for it. And she took that so much to heart. She listened to that. She's like, okay, you know what? No problem. At the time, I just didn't want her to complain and, be in my ear about it, because that was a topic that was over and over again. Like, how you going to pay for it? This and that. I'm like, God will handle it. Lo and behold, God gives her an opportunity. And I'm always going to be thankful for the mother for this. She's in the military, the GI Bill. She finds that if she works a certain amount of years, I'd have a full ride. And that's what she did. She didn't even square it with me. She just went and did it. And I was like, oh, I gotta hop on this now. So that's another thing, just randomly, whatever. Or my favorite one, I have a dear friend. Her name's Liz. And, we were on the cross country team together. I give her a call every now and again. But the girl would ignore me. The girl's even rejecting me without rejecting me. The girl, it drives me crazy. I'll pull my hair out. But the thing I remember is one time she gave me a call. And she never calls me. I'm always the one initiating, like, hey, how you doing? Everything okay? Just keeping up after college. She calls me and she's like, hey, how are you? I'm like, what's wrong? She's like, nothing. I was like, Liz, you never call me. I don't even think you text me back. Like, come on. So she told me she was gonna graduate, but she couldn't walk. And she stressed out all her loans, she stressed out all her money. Nobody was giving her anything, and she was at the point of tears because she earned her degree in biology. Like, she really put in the work. She really came out a better person, and all that hard work for nothing. I was like, if you think God, really put you out there, do you think you're doing what he wants you to do? Yes. All right, then we're good. Challenge him. We're good. So I did a little prayer with her, and I did a nonchalant prayer, like, all right, Lord, you know what? It's bothering her. I didn't even want to walk, but I know it means a lot to her. Let her, do your thing, whatever. Very nonchalant, didn't even worry about it. And then a couple weeks later, missed the phone call, listened to the message, she got to walk. Somebody came through with a loan or a grant for her. So when I think of things like that, I'm like, it seems when I'm more nonchalant with my faith, God makes it happen. I've only had a few times. I want to say 2 times. One, I can definitely say I had an interview with Vince Carter, and I remember it was getting close to crunch time. I got an email back saying we could do it, and then I didn't hear from them until like the day before. And I'm antsy. I'm like, I'm gonna lose another interview. And I remember having that drive when they say, call on the Lord with all your heart. And I had that moment. I was like, God, I've come too far to let this ride, to let this go. If you want this to happen, I'm gonna ask you in the name of Jesus, make this happen and let this be, because I have exhausted all I can to get this. And then it kind of gave me peace. And then a couple minutes later, got the email, this is how it'll happen, and it did. So when it comes to things like this, I'm on a verge of a situation where it's like, okay, I know what the end game is. It's getting to it. It's a lot harder for me to have the long game on it. Of like, okay, you know what am I supposed to do now? Do I focus on getting to this particular point, or do I focus on myself and make myself better? So it always interests me to see how people's faith and their ability to accept it coincides. To change subject real quick, you mentioned
Let me say this real quick. Let me say
go ahead.
this real, my brother. Let me say this real quick. This is how it works. The enemy of faith is worry. So Yeshua taught, which of you can change 1 cubit of his stature by worrying? So what happens is you have to get to a point where you see that worrying is not going to change nothing. So all you have left is just your faith that the Most High will come through in his time, in his way, because we can't put limits on how the Most High choose to be a blessing to us. You just have to be in a spiritual space in your heart, in the spiritual space in your mind, that when he do it, when the Most High do it, you understand it's the Most High doing it.
Mm.
That's why to your statement, how you say God will show off and everything, right? God will show himself off through us. But meaning, it's for us to give God the glory. When he do these, like just the two instances that you mentioned, in those two situations, or maybe three you mentioned, but in those situations, all God wants from you is the glory. And from that, like you say, show God off. Glory, you're talking about an illumination, a bringing to light. All God wants us to do is all the things he have done for us in our life and our lives is to show his light, is to illuminate God in that, glorify him, which means you, like you just told me, look, I had an interview scheduled with Vince Carter. Man, I ain't hear from them. But God allowed that to happen the day before they reached out to me.
Mm-hmm.
Man, I didn't know how I was going to get the college paid for. My mother was asking me about it, and then we figured out my mother did the GI Bill. And God allowed me to pay for college that way. You're glorifying, you're just letting the world know God did it. That's glorifying God. You're bringing God to light in your situation. So it ain't just because of me and I was so good, or because of me and I had the money, but God allowed it to happen. Now you're glorifying God. You're bringing God to light in your life and all the things that he do for us. Be bringing him to light. And that's what it's about.
And that's a
Go ahead.
thought I've never touched on. God showing off through us. That's more profound to me because it's like anything good in my thinking, regardless of what happens, is always you got to give credit to God because of his overall nature and being. But for him to specifically make it a point, like, okay, you're great because I'm great, but you're gonna make me look good for it. You know, that to me, it's generous of God to give us that. Hey, you shine too. Come on, you get this. So, no, that was interesting. I do want to touch more on when you were in Israel, just to keep it pushing. Uh,
Right.
you had an opportunity to get close to the Dome of the Rock, and,
Yeah.
the Muslim religion. If you're not Muslim, it's a respect thing because I do know a couple of brothers. I'm not saying brothers as in like Christian Relief or etc. I'm talking friends that that are Christian that know the Muslim prayer. And
Right.
I wondered, like, as a respect thing for you, because I'm assuming you would probably know it too, having your now knowing of your upbringing and having been exposed to the ideals and the teaching of the Quran. I would have assumed because they said they were teaching. Were they trying to teach you the prayer?
Well, what happened was this. God bless my little sister. I call her my little sister. Suzzie over there, Palestinian sister, and Abby, my Palestinian sister. Hani, her brother, my Palestinian brother, and they whole family, man. God bless all of them. You know what? I'm gonna get into it. So this is what happened, man. I met Suzzie, my little sister, in Jerusalem, in class. She was young, like just out of high school, coming to the Hebrew University, everything. But she used to like, my iPod and things like that. We just became cool. She like, I'm a hip hop guy, and they love hip hop over there. So they used to listen to my iPod and my music and stuff like that. So we just became cool. She started teaching me Arabic. All right, she was my tutor, little Suzzie. So that's my first time going to Jerusalem. I went back during the summertime. But me and Suzzie always stayed in touch on Facebook. Hey, what's up? I can't wait to go back. Things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And so, she hit me up, was like, I'm getting married. I was like, oh, congratulations, I said, yeah, I'm coming back. I'm coming back for summer school. This was in 2009. I'm coming back for summer school. And she's like, oh, yeah, when? So I told her when I was coming back. I went back in July. She said, well, I'm going to change my wedding date and have my wedding when you come back. So she changed her wedding date for me, you know what I'm saying? So I could come to her wedding. So when I got out there, she gave me the number to her friend Abby and Hani. And I linked with them, and I was with their whole family, and we went to Bethlehem, Beit Lechem. That's Bethlehem. Went to Beit Lechem for her wedding. And they had a little bus and everything. And I was on the bus with her whole family. And they was like, Shaun, Shaun, Shaun. They was just celebrating with them on the bus. And we went to her wedding and everything. And had a ball with them. That's my Palestinian family. I love them. So, but from all of that, when we came back from the wedding, I still hung out with Abby and Hani in Jerusalem in the old city. Just go walking and go to places. I wanted to go to the Dome of the Rock. So they was like, I need to know the prayer. So I was like, Hani, teach me the prayer, man, So I was trying to learn it. I think I learned maybe 1 or 2 sentences. I could not. So I went to the security guard, and I was like, hey, I'm trying to go in and go into the mosque. He said, you know the prayer? You know the prayer? I was like, yeah, I know the prayer. He's like, what's the prayer? So I was like, Bismillah Rahman. That's all? I was like, yeah, that's all I know, man. No, you're not Muslim. You can't come in, right?
Right.
And so he wouldn't let me in, man. I never got to go in, but I got to close to see it, But one thing, my Palestinian brothers, they had a shop in the old city, man. I love them. And they used to go to the Dome of the Rock and do their daily prayers. And I would watch the shop for them because we had just got that tight. And I would watch the shop for them while they go pray. And then when they come back, I would go to the designated tomb of Jesus, Yeshua, and do my prayers. You know what I'm saying? And that's when I got my calling to military ministry, praying at the tomb of Jesus.
And I just want to throw out to people how much of a testament that is to you as an individual. Let me explain this. I got friends I've grown up with that are like, yo, man, listen, this wedding is this day. If you can't make it, this is pushing. This friend, this woman, customs might be different overseas, but I know nowadays, especially, dude hears his wife say, oh, we gotta wait, postpone, and move our wedding for my male friend to come here and celebrate it with us. First off, their marriage is amazing. That's 100% understanding and a great man. And that's more so a testament to how great you are at being not just a person, but a family member as a friend. We're talking like that David and Jonathan friendship. I really want to put that out too, because I have a big basis on friendship. I heard one time at the barbershop, if you lived a life and died with 5 good friends, we're talking really good brothers and sisters, you lived a life worth living. And I've been fortunate to have close to 10 people that have proven time and time again, I have a place to stay, I have food on the table if I can't afford it, whatever I need without asking. So anytime somebody is a really good, I want to point that out for you, just being such a good friend and the friendships that you develop. All right, that says a lot, not just about your character, but you as a person. I'm gonna throw that in there. I want everyone listening to take note of that.
I'm gonna tell you how this happened, man. Like before I went to Jerusalem the first time, like I had everything was set. It was just time for me to go, bags packed, bread, everything. I was outside in my mom's front yard, my parents' house in the front yard. It was nighttime, just looking at the stars. And God said to me, when you go over there, don't take sides. He said, you ain't Jewish, you're not Palestinian, you're a follower of Jesus Christ. You love everybody. And that's what I did. I took that with me. And when I got over there, I had Jewish brothers from the school I used to play basketball with all night in the gym, and Jewish sisters I was cool with, like for real. And I played on a flag football team, big blue flag football team at Kraft Stadium, downtown Jerusalem. Like God was, because I just loved people. I didn't take sides. I just loved everybody. the way of Yeshua, love everybody. And so from that, when I would get with the Palestinians, I just loved them. I didn't take sides, you know what I'm saying? And that's what made all of that happen over there. Just loving the people, just loving people, man. Love covers a multitude of sin. And he told me, when you go over there, don't take sides. Because I was over there, the Jewish brothers, they ain't want to deal with them. But they'd sit in the classroom with them. That's why I brought up over there the separation, man. Where you would be at the bus stop and everybody going to the same place, downtown to the shuk to buy some food. The Palestinians and the Jewish people. We all at the bus stop. You got the little green bus coming. That's going to pick up the Palestinians and take them downtown Jerusalem. Then you got the big bus going to come and get the Jewish people and take them downtown Jerusalem. They both going to the same place, but on a different bus. You know what I'm saying? Like, come on, man. You know, so what I used to do, I used to jump on both buses. You know, just stuff like that, man, just to show the love of Christ, man. That's all, man. That's all I wanted to show. I love people, man.
You did mention the craft flag football in the book, having the Celtics, then at the time at least, president come through and mention like the first black basketball player. I, as a person, I don't want to say I struggle with it, even though the recent lights and the past year in America has really brought me to my understanding of my situation. I have multiple ethnicities, but if I'm ever with a particular group, I never really, I don't want to say accept it because I'm there, but there's a clear understanding that I'm out of it. Whether it's okay, it's just because of my skin color, or I don't understand the I want to say culture aspects of it. There's always an understanding. Like there's always a missing piece, but that's also allowed me to become a chameleon of a way and be able to, hey, I can hang with them. I can hang with them. It doesn't matter religion, color, ideologies. Like I think somebody said it best to me. He's like, you're a Democrat with Republican ideology. And I'm like, man, well, who doesn't like guns? Guns are fun, So with that said, and in the book you mentioned like you felt like you were breaking ground because he was mentioning the first black basketball player in NBA history. You were in Israel, and it was almost like it was just you breaking ground, making the friendships and connections, and you
Yeah.
almost cried. I was wondering, did you get to speak to him after? And what was the situation afterward like for you? Like, did you come away feeling like, oh, I got to write this down, or did you say, okay, you know what? How do I capitalize on this revelation I just had? And if you want to explain it to the readers, because I already have an idea of what happened out there.
See, when I got over there, and I mean, African Americans go to that school, don't get me wrong, and you got your Ethiopians over there, most definitely.
Mm-hmm.
But when I was there, won't know Africa. Now, my second trip, I met some African Americans there. But my first trip, when I was there, man, I was the only black out of 22,000 students. You had your Ethiopians there, but I was the only black. And you asked, I met a Kenyan. She was Kenyan. I met her. A Kenyan was there. But I was the only African American out of 22,000 students, man. And that's just real talk. And so my first day when they had all the master's degree students, and they had a little meeting and wine and cheese and everything, right? And this stuff woke me up, man. This stuff, man. That's why I wrote these books, man, because I just want to share my journey, man. So I'm up in a room with all of these, I mean, Asians, Koreans, Ethiopian up there, Kenyan, Irish, Polish, Russians, Jewish, every South American, like all the nationalities is up there in this room, all right? And they just inviting us to the school as graduate students and having a little talk with us over some wine and cheese, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm looking around, man, and I'm like, wow, I'm the only black, the only like black man American, The rest of the world is here and I'm here. So when that experience happened to me, man, I was like, I'm standing in the gap for my people. I'm representing my people. And that started the whole journey of Jerusalem for me. When I had that experience up there in that room, that's when I was like, I gotta show people who we are. That's why, and go back to standing in my parents' yard that night, looking at the stars, man. When you get over there, you love everybody. You don't pick sides. So when I was in that room with everybody, I was like, I'm standing in the gap for my people. I'm representing my people. And I'm going to show these people representing their nations and where they from. I'm going to show them who we are. And all I did, man, I was befriended people. I had fun with people. I ain't judge nobody. I ain't none of that. I just loved everybody. I just have fun with everybody. And I wanted people, because some of these people, believe it or not, ain't never been around no black people before, man. They from France and different places of the world. Real talk. Australia. One guy, Australian, him and his wife was in class with me. They was like, you the first black we ever met. We walk into class together. They told me that, like, for real. So it was like, I was just representing my people. And I was like, I'm going to let these people know, African Americans, we good people, man. We got love in our hearts. I know the media might show you one thing. Hip hop videos might show you something else. And politics may show you something else. And all this other stuff you can get about our people. But this is my opportunity to show these people, African Americans, we good people. And we love people, man. And I took advantage of that. I thank God for that experience.
And it's a good thing you pointed out there, because I thought of two different things. One was Malcolm X when he went overseas and he felt the love for the first time of being accepted as a human. That's kind of the reverse, you coming in and showing people. But yeah, there is a disconnect. Things, especially in every culture, things that we find normal or something that's we interpret differently, other people be like, oh, that's so violent or this or that. And we're like, you're not getting the story or especially the context. So for you to be able to represent that out there, you had some time. So especially with the philosophy major, you had you had a good head on your shoulders to witness that. But it is something that I always keep in mind, like culturally. There's very few things around the world where every culture goes, no, it's wrong. So it's a matter of perspective, like, okay, let me see why they think this way. So
because it was like this. When I stayed with my cousin TA for the summer to just keep getting some money, he let me stay with him and save up. TA told me straight up, he was like, man, you can stay here, don't worry about no rent or nothing, work the job, save your money. So he was like, look, Shaun, man, what you doing ain't nobody around the way doing. Like, straight up, like, I was going overseas, man. Around my way, ain't nobody doing that unless you got Bubba Chuck and them. They with the NBA, you know what I'm saying? And the athletes that made it. So they able to do those type of things and travel and like that. But we just regular guys around the way. Ain't nobody doing that. But I'm doing it as a preacher. Like getting a passport, just stuff like that blew my mind. Like, wow, I'm about to get a pass. That's deep. How you spell it? You know what I'm saying? We around the way. We ain't thinking about passport. So TA was like, look, man, what you doing ain't nobody around the way. For real. Handle that. But I'm just saying that to say, when I got to Kraft Stadium and I was playing with Big Blue, we was having a flag football game. The owner of the Celtics came, and he, wanted to speak to both teams. Our team was all in the middle of the field. Our team and the other team, and he had a mic and everything in the stadium, and he wanted to speak to everybody. So, the first black to play in the NBA had passed away. All right. He wanted to honor him as the first black and everything and just share that with us and what he meant to the game of basketball and all of that, right? So while I'm out there, I'm the only black on the field. So I'm like, wow, this is crazy. I was like, wow. And it's crazy you interviewing me, man, got me doing this, because this is my first time ever talking to anybody about Raq Liktov like this. But anyway, I appreciate you doing this, bro. But I'm standing on the field and I'm the only black, and I'm like, wow. This guy's here honoring a black man in America, first NBA player, and I'm the only black here. You know what I'm saying? It just, the connection of that, man, it was crazy. So it just brought me to tears, man. Like, God has blessed me, man, to do these things and represent my people and try to do something positive and just show the world love and all of the things we've had to endure, you know what I'm saying, in our time in America, and still be able to dig inside and bring the love of Christ out to be a blessing to others. But God allowed that to happen, man. Look, that was something, man. Yeah.
And I believe it was Earl Lloyd. I'm not gonna lie and say I didn't cheat. I definitely looked that up as soon as you mentioned it. But yeah, or Earl Lloyd, October 31st, 1950, at 21 years old for the Washington Capitals.
What year did he die?
You know what? It doesn't specify. Let me look it up. Oh boy.
Maybe it was the first black for the Celtics. It was
Maybe.
one.
Maybe, because it says he passed away a little. Now we got to do our research, because now I'm looking, it said 2015 he passed away.
So not then, it was the first black for the Boston Celtics then.
Chuck
That's what
Cooper, maybe. First
it was.
black player enshrined in the Hall of Fame. That's Chuck Cooper for the Celtics. We getting off topic. We gonna look at I'll leave it in the comments.
Yeah, we don't worry about it. We don't worry about it.
Last thing I wanted to hit on, especially, was the Mount Sinai trip, going up the mountain, especially knowing how your name got you such luck. Amin, I forgot. Could you explain what the literal meaning is? So I want it for verbatim.
It's a Hebrew, Aramaic, Arabic word, and it comes from the root of it. Anyway, it means faithful and trustworthy. Okay, my mother, I can only say what my mother shared with me about this. My mother told me she always wanted a Shaun Amin. She thought the name Amin was Swahili, but it's probably got roots to the African dialects too, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But she thought it was Swahili. When I go to Egypt, to Sinai Peninsula, my buddies is going out there for a volleyball tournament. They going to a volleyball tournament in Cairo. I'm gonna meet them out there. So I catch the bus, everything to Eilat, go to, I get to the Red Sea. It's sort of like Virginia Beach or that beach in Jersey. Atlantic, what is the beach in Jersey?
Ocean City, Atlantic
Yeah.
City, we all got boardwalks out here.
Yeah, look, just
Wildwood.
like that. The Red Sea is like a boardwalk. You know what I'm saying? And it's got stores and hotels and stuff. So I'm out there. I'm by myself, solo for dolo, right? And it's nighttime. I catch a cab from the customs to the Red Sea because they already told me where to go to and everything. So I get there and I'm by myself and I go to a hotel lobby because I'm tired or whatever, and I just and the guy in the lobby is like, because I'm asking him how can I go to the Moses Mountain. They call it the Mount Musala. They call it the Moses Mountain because it's the biggest mountain in Sinai Peninsula. So they just say this is the Moses Mountain because it's the highest.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, look, I'm telling the guys working at the desk in the hotel, I'm trying to go to the Moses Mountain. It was like, well, we take a trip there every night. So I was like, okay, can I get on the trip? And they was like, yeah, just chill here. We're leaving about midnight or something. And just, sure you can go. So, I lay down they had a couch. I lay down on the couch or whatever. And then I get up, and the name of the hotel is called Seventh Heaven Hotel. You probably could Google it. All right. They should still be there. I don't know. That was some years ago. But I was like, look, I want to walk around the boardwalk, man, but I want to leave my stuff on the couch. Is it going to be safe? He was like, look, you're in heaven now, man. No one's going to touch it. You're in heaven. I was like, oh, okay.
But you gotta tell me the brother, and you were like, yeah, okay, all right, well,
I was like, okay, okay. Shucks, man, it's my bag, man. I'm in Egypt, man. So I left it there though. And I just went walking and just look. I ain't had no money for nothing, man. But I'm seeing all these chessboards and stuff. Like, dang, I wish I could get that, But I come back, ain't nobody touch it. So we get in the car. It's probably after 1 in the morning or so. It's pitch dark. It's a little Jeep. It's me, a white couple, and like 2 Korean couples. And we all in the car, and this dude is flying to the he's going taking us to the Moses Mountain to the foot of it. And he's just flying around the cliff, man. You look, it's this pitch dark. He going like 100 miles an hour. I'm in the back seat, scared as I don't know what. Like, wow, this dude is dipping. When we get there safe, so when we get to the foot, because a lot of people like that part of Raq Liktov Book 1. They like, I think it's the way I wrote it. I wrote it different from the other parts of Raq Liktov. I tried to tell it more like a story.
Mm.
But when I got to the foot, it's pitch dark, and we get out, and man, I see like about 100 people, Arabs everywhere, tourists everywhere, camels everywhere, and when all you hear is that's all you hear. It's pitch dark. Man, my God, yo, it's pitch dark, and all you hear is that's all you hear. I was like, wow, these are official Arabs, man. They got the turbans and robes on. I was like, these official Arabs.
Yeah.
So I get out, man, and I go talk to one of the guys. Is like, you know, we in a group. So I'm like, we want to climb the mountain. So he said, okay, we're gonna start. So the Arabs out there, their job is to take everybody. You can't go by yourself. You gotta have a Arab take you up the mount, walk you up the mountain, and everything. So this young short guy, he's short like my height, man. Short guy, Arab guy. He was like, y'all my group, y'all my group. Well, we were like, okay. So everybody starts climbing together, right? Everybody starts climbing. It's like take 3 hours to get up there. Go ahead.
Now for the climb, are we talking just a walk up, or are we talking physically having to sometimes to grab?
Just like a walking up. We kind of going up in circles, though. You know what I'm saying? But it's a long walk up, bro. Like 3 hours to get up there. I mean, it's old people, and just all types of people from all over the world just want to walk up the Moses Mountain and have that experience, that Moses Mountain experience. It was crazy. But a lot of Asians, though. So, but they got rest spots, too, because, man, your legs be killing you, man. So they got rest spots where you can rest for like 5-10 minutes, because you want to get up to the top to watch the sunrise, and that happens at like 6:15 in the morning. So we started about 3, got up there about 6. But while we walking up, people getting tired and stuff like that. So the leader guy, you know, he's walking with me, and he was like, man, what's your name? So I was like, I'm Amin, right?
Hey.
So he's like, Amin, you Amin. So he tell one of the other Arab guys walking up too, this is Amin, this is Amin, this is our brother, right? So they was like, oh, Amin, you know. So he was like, Amin, I'm gonna make you the leader of the group, right? So I'm gonna make you the leader of the group. So he put me in charge of the group. So but from that point on, the rest of the night, he called me his brother, you know, and I was able to like talk out. So I was just asking him questions like, what's it like living out here, and how is it and stuff, just talking with him, you know. But that opened the door for me to talk with him, dialogue. But he called me his brother, you know, from that, because it's an Arabic name. I mean, you know. But so when I got back, you know, from the walk and the mountain visit and everything, and sunrise, I get back to customs. I'm trying to get back into Israel now. So the lady in there, she say, she looked at my passport. She was like, I mean, are you Arab? I was like, my mom thought it Swahili. You know what I'm saying? So she was like, all right. She let me back in Israel, you know. But from that, that's when I tapped in. That's how in this book 3 here come about, where I tapped into really researching my middle name, which I kind of use it as my last name now. But it was my middle name, Amin, and I just did a research on it, a biblical research on it, and I deal with the Aramaic text on it. I deal with it, understanding Amin in the biblical Aramaic, you know what I'm saying? And I deal with a proto-Semitic discourse of biblical Aramaic. So in this book, I deal with the Hebrew, Aramaics, you know what I mean, from the Bible, and scriptures from the Bible, where you can identify this is an Aramaic scripture by certain words, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Daniel got Aramaic scriptures in it. I believe it's Kings got Aramaic scriptures in it. But you could tell by the some of the words that's used. In the Hebrew though, you know what I'm saying? And that's what made, when I knew it was official for me, when I went to Hebrew University and I took a Book of Jeremiah class. So if you can see it or not, when I took the Book of Jeremiah class at Hebrew U, the class came straight from the Hebrew Bible, man. On no English Bible, bro. I had to take that class straight from the Hebrew, man. You see what I'm trying to? I ain't talking about English, man. No King James, New International Version, none of that. I had to take it from the Hebrew. So when I took that class, and I did good, you know what I'm saying? But the way that class made me dive into the Hebrew Bible, like it made me dive into this. I had to dive into that, bro. You know what I'm saying? I had to use a concordance, a Hebrew concordance for this. Where it took me, the knowledge of it, and that's the thing, man. The knowledge gain I got for those professors over there, I love them. I thank them. They geniuses in biblical scholarship, geniuses for real. Dr. Eltanan taught me Akkadian. I forget my teacher for Coptic name. Man, shoot, Dr. Barkai did archaeology of the old city. Man, taking them classes where it took me in the Bible. And it's like with the church, man, people, they be scared of this stuff. And it ain't nothing but the same Bible you read every day, the same Bible you meditate on. It's just the original, one of the original languages. That's all it is. When you scared of it.
But you know what? I can attest that was me, because in college I'm not the best. I want to say linguist. I've gotten a lot better now with my appreciation for languages and my lust to learn those languages. But I remember being in class, like they had an option to learn biblical studies. That was my major, biblical studies. I didn't know what to do with myself, so I said I'll pick something I like. And I remember it's like, well, do you want to pick the side that goes with the biblical languages, or do you want to go with just learning the Bible? I was like, oh, yo, I ain't going to sacrifice my grade. I can barely speak Spanish, and I took 4 years of that in high school. I might have gotten B's, but I can't speak it, so I'm gonna go the safe route. Now I'll at least look, and I can honestly say if I see at least a Spanish word, a German word, a word in Hebrew, I might not be able to interpret the meaning of it, but I can at least spit like, okay, this is my guess at what it should sound like or what it should be, so I can understand being hesitant on it.
So what I'm trying to do with Raq Liktov, I'm trying to avoid that happening to other people. That's what I'm trying to avoid. That's why when I went to Boston to finish up where I did a master's in Boston. I was a part of the Boston Theological Institute, and I did a master's of theological research. And then I published the thesis, teaching and learning the biblical languages in the 21st century church. All right. And what my thesis was about, I published it. And what that's about is pretty much teaching children and people in the church the languages of the Bible. Because when I was in Jerusalem, I met children, man, and this is real. Most High is my witness. I met children. They could speak Jewish, they could speak Russian, they could speak whatever language they like, land wherever they was from. Like I met children. This one little teenager was like 13, 14 years old. He could speak like 3, 4 languages. I was like, wow, a child could do that. You know what I'm saying? Like for real, I actually was meeting people like that. So like I say, I always channeled everything into my people, thinking about my people. So I was like in the church, I was like, what's wrong with our children or people? But think about it. Islam, Muslims, they got some familiarity with Arabic in the Quran. Jewish, in the synagogues, they sing hymns and stuff from the Psalms in the Hebrew. So it's like, why us who follow, I don't really identify with the Christianity and all that, but who follow the Lord Jesus Christ, why with us, it's a problem to get into the languages of the Bible. But those other seeds of Abraham, they embrace their original languages of their sacred text. But when it comes to us, it's just got to be English. Yeah. Or it's got to be the country you from. That's it. And I'm like, so this book talked about actually teaching laity, teaching children in the church, giving preachers and pastors the responsibility to, when they go to seminaries and all that, to get their education, to learn the languages so they can prepare the people to go to another level with the sacred text. You could teach this stuff to the Hebrew and Greek to the children in the church, or to the choir. The choir can sing songs in Hebrew. You know what I'm saying? Like, all types of stuff you can do just to get to identify and get closer to your sacred text. That's all it is. You know what I'm saying? Ain't trying to change nobody's belief or none of that stuff. But people fear what they don't know. They're afraid. But at the end of the day, I'm just trying to do my part to help people see ain't nothing wrong with saying Yeshua for the name Jesus, or saying Meshiach for the name Christ, or saying Jesus in Greek for Jesus. Ain't nothing wrong with saying Christos, where Christ come from in Greek. It's nothing wrong with saying Elohim in God, or Allah in God. Ain't nothing wrong with saying, you know what I'm saying, Krematizo. There's nothing wrong with the original languages of the Bible. And knowing the people's names, Shlomo and Shimshon and Yishak and Yaakov, Isaac and Jacob. Like, you ain't going to hell because you learned the Bible in the original language. You know what I'm saying? But it's so different and foreign. They never been taught, and they miseducated. The pastors and preachers, they ain't got, all they worrying about is getting their hoop on, if you ask me, but that's their business. I can't judge nobody. But me, I want to educate the people, and I want to let the people know, ain't nothing wrong with taking your faith to the next level and getting closer to your religious text that you believe in, then you taking with you to the day you die, that your faith is built upon. Ain't nothing wrong with it. That's what Raq Liktov I try to do. That's why I called it Raq Liktov. I ain't just call it just right. I wanted to put the Hebrew in it to introduce you to Hebrew and say, you know what, it's nothing wrong with me saying Raq Liktov. I know you want to say something, but let me say this right quick. In this right here, teaching and learning the biblical languages, let me say this to you. I mentioned this. You ever heard of the term Emmanuel?
Yeah.
But you said it?
Yeah, I've said it.
You spoke Hebrew. Okay, you ever heard the term hallelujah?
Yeah.
You ever said it?
Yep.
You spoke Hebrew. So when the people try to tell me, well, that's a gift. Everybody can't speak that language. Everybody can't. It's just a gift. It's got to be a gift. That's a lie. You know what I'm saying? You can say Emmanuel. That ain't nothing but Hebrew. You saying a Hebrew word. If you can say hallelujah, you just saying a Hebrew word. That means you can say Yeshua. You can say Shimshon. You can say any other word in Hebrew. All you got to do is, like Christ said, what's disciple discipline. All you got to do is study to show yourself approved. That's it. Study it. You can learn it. It's not about having a gift. You got to have a tongue and all of this stuff. You just learn the daggone alphabets, the vowels, and put it together and just study and get better at it. Can't nobody tell me you can't speak Hebrew when you can say and sit there in church and say hallelujah, hallelujah till you fall out. You said it. Christmas time come. Now all of a sudden you shouting Emmanuel, Emmanuel. But all of a sudden, I don't know I can't speak Hebrew though. Tell it to somebody else. You know what I'm saying? That's the ignorance. That's the ignorance. That's all it is, man. So I'm just trying to, take it to another level, man. Raq Liktov. That's it.
And you stated like overcoming sins in the book 1, at least, about like how you have to be consistent with it. In time you'll overcome whatever you're dealing with. And it's always just do what you can is to study the book, keep your relationship with God via prayer, and keeping the faith. I do want to touch on this one. This is the question I always ask last, and you may have already mentioned it. I think the one I'm about to get back, the answer from you might be it. But to you, what's something someone said that was probably the greatest piece of advice you've ever been given by someone else?
Yeah, I put it in book 1. I think I was about 15, 16. I was in a dance group called Dance Troupe, Dora Miller Dance Troupe at a recreation center. We used to go everywhere dancing, just parties and all, opening concerts and all. We did it. It was so much fun, bro. God bless Dwight and John, our instructors, AJ, Donnell, Daryl, Jamie, Little Tony, Tiffany, Shalita, all of them. We had a ball, man. But at the end of the day, rest in peace, Bobby. But and um, the white, my dance instructor, man. We was having rehearsal, practice, because we used to go hard, man. Practice every day for hours in there, sweat. We was teenagers, keeping us off the streets and stuff like that. But the white said to us once, "Don't never worry about what somebody say about you, because people gonna talk about you regardless. Live your life." He told us that one day in the classroom. And I put it in Raq Liktov book 1, man. I'm gonna tell you why I mentioned that. I'll tell you why I mentioned that as one of the most important things I heard, man. Because it's that statement that empowered me, man, to stay on this ministry course over the years of this 24 years. That statement. It's that statement why I write Raq Liktov. I don't care what nobody gotta say about it. It's that statement why I accepted my call to the ministry to preach the gospel. I don't care what nobody got to say about it. It's that statement why I just be me and I could speak the cultural language that we have as African Americans and minorities and our culture of hip hop and everything, and not care about what nobody got to say about it, man. I could be myself. Because it was people telling me, don't go to Jerusalem. They got bombs over there. You're going to get blown up. That's where the terrorists at. In Israel, the Middle East, don't go over there. People in churches telling me that, man. Like, for real. Mm-hmm. But it's that statement the white made, man, when I was a teenager. Don't worry about what nobody got to say about you. They going to talk about you regardless. When he said that, it embedded in my heart, man, and it allowed me to do everything God has blessed me to do, as long as it's good and it's for the sake of the Lord, to the best of my ability, man, and it's not out to hurt nobody. I take that with me, man. I don't let because coming from Virginia, I'm telling you, man, people will hate on you. Some people want to see you stuck, don't want to see you get out. For real. They say Virginia is for lovers. It's people that want to see you stay there and ride out. They don't want to see you do nothing with your life, bro. It's people that's like that in VA and other places too, I know. But I'm just saying, I say that to say, if you, preachers and all, man, pastors and all, if you listen to them, you won't do nothing with your life. It's people that will discourage your dreams, man, things you want to do in life. Try to dictate your life to you. I follow God and God alone, bro. Period. End of story. And that all come from what Dwight said that in Dance True Practice. For real. Don't worry about what nobody say about you, because they're going to talk about you regardless. And I just took it with me, man. And that's really what got me here today, wherever I am today. God got me here from that. Not worrying. I'm talking about standing up, preaching before people and all types of stuff, man. Hanging out with friends, sinning, doing stuff I got no business doing as a preacher. I ain't supposed to be doing that, but Shaun want to hang out. He want to hang out. And I know better, I done been called every name under the sun as a preacher. You going to hell, you a demon, you a devil, you a lie, you a hypocrite. I've been called everything. But because I always remember the white told me, man, don't worry about what people say about you. They're going to talk about you regardless, man. Live your life. I never let their words stop me from going forward with the gospel. And that's why I think I love my Pastor Dunning so much, because when I was going through hard times around the way, I used to drive all the way to Lynchburg, Virginia, almost every Sunday, a 3-hour drive, just to go to church. For real. You know what I'm saying? Because I felt comfortable. He always accepted me as I was. He knew it was things I was going through. He knew I had struggles. I was a young preacher, early 20s or whatever. He knew about all of that. I could talk to him about everything, and he wouldn't judge me. And while some preachers would say, well, you don't need to be preaching right now. You doing this or you going through that. You need to stay out the pulpit. Dunning will always be like, this is what Dunning taught me. when you going through things, that's when the preacher need to be in the pulpit, continuing the work of the Lord and preaching the gospel like God instructed him to do. God done and taught me this in preaching class. God ain't never called me to a perfect life. He called me to be faithful. So I never let my imperfections keep me from being faithful. Because I'm gonna have imperfections, whether I'm a preacher or not, whether I walk with the Most High or not. I'm gonna have imperfections. But I'm not gonna let that stop me from doing what God placed on my heart to do. And I know there's a lot of preachers that'll disagree with me and everything like that. And that's fine. Everybody have a right to their thoughts and whatnot. I think for myself, I thank God for the word, for the inspiration and empower me and all I've been through and my family and everybody. I thank God for you, brother, for giving me a chance to share Raq Liktov with your community. And I just thank God for everything. I walk with the Most High every day, all day. God is the greatest. I thank the Lord Yeshua for saving me and giving me a chance to a new life. And it's been rough. Thank God for all everybody that had my back, man. Like for real, man. Because I got a lot of brothers that a lot of brothers just say, look, man, you my brother, man. And they ain't really condemn me like that. They just let me do what I did with them. And they knew I was a preacher. But hey, that's my people's right here. I knew him before he became a preacher. You know what I'm saying? I ain't gonna act funny on him because he a preacher now and trying to change his life, but he might be making some mistakes or he might be going through something and I'm gonna frown on him or you can't hang with me no more. Some people was kind of presented that like that a little bit, but for the most part, a lot of my brothers was like, what's up, my dude? Peace. What's up, Preacher Shaun, you know?
How
And
you
I was
holding up?
yeah, they let me be me. So God bless you, man, and what you're doing, man. And I appreciate your time and doing this with me. I ain't never did nothing like this before. So I appreciate it, man. It was a good experience for me.
Thank you so much for your time, sir. And if people are still aware, the time lapse is so long. It's actually dark in my room. It was so bright earlier that I was like, oh, I don't need to turn on the top light. But now it's dark in here, so I got these other lights helping me out. So, ladies and gentlemen, that was Shaun Amin Terrell. He is the writer of the Raq Liktov book series. It's got Hebrew in it. It's got, I want to say a little Spanish. I remember seeing Spanish. It might be me. And a little bit of English. But he was such a great talk. And the thing I loved about our speaking is after reading the book and hearing from him, just a lot of things were connecting so much easier. It was like, wow, I remember that part of the book, or, oh, this sheds a lot of light on this particular reason he wrote that. So, sir, if I was a patron and I wanted to get a hold of this book or you, how would I do that?
The whole of Raq Liktov, book 1, book 3, book 2 is being re-edited. You can email me at Shaun, SHAUN _Terrell, TERRELL @hotmail.com. Shaun _Terrell @hotmail.com. I definitely will get that email. I'm not on Facebook much.
And before you go, can I get an ID from you?
But other than that, you are watching John the Ninja. Peace and blessings. Love all.